I'm Denise Mina, and this is Case Histories on BBC Radio Scotland, where we talk about ordinary people who fought the law and the law didn't win.
It's the case that everybody talks about in law school.
It was a decision for which the time had come.
It became a precedent which really is the cause for billions of dollars changing hands today.
It was a case for the modern world for which the law can take off and sort out these problems.
So in what exotic location, you might ask, does this legal blockbuster take place?
Paisley.
And what is the legal issue at hand?
Snail.
Who's bringing the case?
Mrs. Donoghue, a shop assistant.
A poor woman.
This is the story of May Donoghue, a shop assistant from the Barras, who in 1928 takes a trip to Paisley, where she has a strange encounter with a snail. Unlikely as it sounds, this led to a legal battle, Donoghue versus Stevenson, and that battle went all the way to the House of Lords, and it's known all around the world as the Paisley Snail.
It's one of the first cases that all Scots lawyers and many lawyers across the world ever encounter. It's about someone...
I'm reliving my law school days with Andrew Tickell, a lecturer at Glasgow Caledonian University.
But it's fun because it's about your own community.
Could you tell us a little bit about the facts around the Paisley Snail case, Donoghue versus Stevenson, which is very famous?
Yeah. So the core of it effectively is about a ginger beer bottle in Paisley. And the facts: Mrs. Donoghue went to a cafe in Paisley, ordered a float, so ice cream with ginger beer poured over the top of it. The first kind of couple of gulps of this was fine, but as she got to the bottom of this bottle, out of it slithered a decomposing snail, with the obvious consequence that Mrs. Donoghue was very upset, and she went to her doctor and was diagnosed with gastroenteritis and shock as a result of this gruesome discovery in her float.
So why couldn't she sue them because she'd bought the bottle the way you would in normal consumer law?
She didn't buy the bottle. That's the critical point. So before this point, all of these remedies were based on contracts. So the law accepted the idea that if we form mutual obligations, then I can sue you if you fail to deliver your contract properly. But the problem is, it wasn't Mrs. Donoghue that bought the ginger beer. It was her pal. It was her friend.
One of the mysteries of this case is we never found out who the friend was because the case didn't go to proof, and there was a suggestion that it was a romantic assignation.
It was her friend who'd bought it from Mr. Mangella, who was the cafe owner, and it was Mr. Mangella who'd bought the ginger beer from Stevenson, who was the manufacturer in Paisley of these ginger beer bottles. So there were legal relationships between those two people, but Mrs. Donoghue was left without any connection to either Stevenson, who manufactured this, or to Mangella, who'd sold them this. So her argument couldn't be rooted in contract. She had to find another way to get it into the courts.
Now this sounds, I mean, to you and I, our eyes are shining because we're both very interested in law. I think to most people, no, it's a bit tragic. I think to most people that's quite dreary because it sounds like an area of consumer law. Who were these people? Because the story is amazing, and is an internationally famous case that's affected law all over the world and all over the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about the people, two wee ladies going for an ice cream float in Paisley? How did they change the world?
Well, it's fascinating. Everyone involved in this case tells you, I think, something about the social history of Scotland and West Central Scotland in particular. The manufacturer of this ginger beer was a local company. So it was a local company in Paisley. It was before the time of big conglomerates entering the fizzy drinks market. The cafe owner who sold them this particular toxic snail brew was from an Italian family. He was called Francesco Mangella. And as for the woman at the heart of it, well, often we know more about the snail than we do about her, which is striking. But she has an interesting whole set of life behind her before she finds herself up in the House of Lords. She was from a fairly modest background. She was from a fairly poor family. Her father was a steel worker. She married when she was 18 years of age, and she had 4 children, of which one survived. 3 of them died during infancy. And in 1928, when she encountered this decomposing snail, she'd separated from her husband. So she'd separated from her husband and was living at that time with her brother down near where the Barrowlands Ballroom is in Glasgow. So not a particularly wealthy district of the city. So she wasn't a woman who had easy access to legal remedies. You know, people often say that justice is a bit like the Ritz Hotel. It's open equally to the rich and poor alike, but you don't find many poor people in the Ritz Hotel. So she's an unlikely litigant in this context.
I think that's so interesting because I assumed she was a rich matriarch. Did you?
I think I did as well.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?